that we understand, and I think we don't. One of the things, and this is another thing, I just saw an article in the UK talking about these patient advocacy groups. We have these huge groups that are supposed to be patient advocacy groups, and they get just lots and lots of funding from these pharmaceutical industries. Some of which is declared, most of which is not, and so they end up becoming just sort of advertising agencies for these companies. And that's another thing where people think they go to these support groups and all they're doing is getting pushed back further into this pharmaceutical industry. Do you find that to be problematic as well?
Yeah, I mean, I can even tell you firsthand experience, Shawn, going back many years even. So 2013, May, I wrote my first publication in the BMJ, which was kind of like an investigation essentially. And what I'd figured out in the previous 12 months is that so it's about sugar. Let's just talk about sugar briefly, just to give the audience an example of what goes on. So once I became familiar with the science of sugar, knowing that excess sugar consumption was detrimental to metabolic health, linked to type 2 diabetes, likely heart disease, I found a statement put up by the American Heart Association. Now let's just for an instant say that not everything the American Heart Association put out is corrupted by industry. This was actually a statement. There was a consensus report done on sugar consumption, and Robert Lustig, who pediatrician in California, was involved in that report, and that didn't have, it was an independent report by the American Heart Association for a change. And what they concluded from that report in 2009, people can look this up in open access, is they said that the average American should be consuming, the average American man at that stage should have no more than 9 teaspoons of added sugar in their diet. Female should have 6. And interestingly, the US Department of Agriculture said for the average, for a 4 to 8-year-old child, it should be no more than 3 teaspoons of added sugar. Yet, the average American, certainly in that stage, was consuming something like 22 teaspoons of sugar a day. So I looked at that information, I looked at the science on sugar, and then I thought, okay, what's the information in Europe? So I just went to my local grocery store and I just picked up any item that I could find, even a candy bar or whatever. And in Europe, they have something called the guideline daily amount. So it gives you like a percentage figure, like this item has this amount of your guideline daily amount of what you should be consuming. And what I discovered, Shawn, was that throughout Europe, people were actually being told just from food labels that they're picking up to try and, we talk about informed consent in the grocery store, from the food labeling throughout Europe, they were actually being advised to consume 22.5 teaspoons of sugar a day. Okay. Now, I tried to look into how did this all happen. I went to the roots of it. I contacted various people, and I basically found that the sugar industry had influenced the guidelines. Now, this wasn't the interesting part. Wasn't this? This wasn't the most interesting part. So I was gathering data to write this article on what was called the Dietary Advice on Added Sugar is in Need of Emergency Surgery. And only I think a few months earlier, there was a news story that had come out showing that sodas, sugary drinks were linked to type 2 diabetes across Europe. And it was a news story, and I was looking at the various people commentating on it. And we had a spokesperson from the soft drinks industry, the usual stuff. Oh, this didn't take into consideration family history, it's complicated, usual deflecting, there's not a problem here, sugar doesn't cause diabetes, basically. Now, what was really interesting for me was our largest diabetes charity, Diabetes UK. Their spokesperson said something almost identical to the spokesperson for the soft drinks industry. And I thought, this is interesting. So I went to Diabetes UK's website and I looked up their corporate partners and corporate sponsors. And not surprise, obviously they have many pharmaceutical industry sponsors, but one of them was Abbott. Now, Abbott Nutrition, I had remembered from a talk Robert Lustig had given, had actually been, culpable or exposed or whatever for promoting baby formula milks to 12-month-olds that had high levels of sugar in it. And I found that, I'm talking about levels of about, 9 teaspoons of added sugar in a single 240 ml formula milk bottle for 12-month-old babies, Shawn. And basically, Diabetes UK were linked to companies that were promoting and whatever else. So anyway, I wrote this article and the BMJ press released it. It became a big story over here. The focus wasn't about Diabetes UK and the conflicts of interest, although I'd written that in the piece. It was more about cardiologist says we need to get sugar consumption down. What's going on? We need to resolve all this sugar information. And ultimately what happened is there was a little bit of a spat between the Diabetes UK and myself and the BMJ. And I then found further evidence. They said that there was no link. They hadn't taken any money from Abbott. And then I found further evidence, not that Diabetes UK had declared it, but Abbott had to declare where they'd given money. And they, in one, I found one, on their website, from Abbott's website, I found that they had donated, in one conference had basically paid Diabetes UK something like £44,000, okay, for using a stall. So I said, hold on a minute. Why, we've got this obesity problem, sugar's an issue. Why is a company that, why is a charity that's supposed to represent the interests of people with type 2 diabetes and type 1 diabetes, associated with such an industry? So, that's just really the tip of the iceberg, Shawn, of what's going on. A lot of these organizations that people believe to be independent, that believe to be representing their health interests, are taking money from drug companies in the food industry. This is completely unacceptable. This is outrageous. We should not accept this. Nobody should accept this. But this is the norm. This is the way the system is geared, right now. So that needs to be exposed, and then it needs to be changed.